Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris and welcome to another Top 10 LEGO video, where we'll be taking a look at the many different minifigs across Ninjago's 11-year run. Last time we took a look at the top 10 best Ninjago ninja figures, and today we're going to be taking a look at the top 10 villain designs. Who were the best villains, who were the best designed, and were the minions the best, were the main villains the best? We're going to be taking a look at every villainous LEGO Ninjago figure and going from there. And so there are a lot of characters to look at over Ninjago's massive run. But again, this is just my opinion, and I would love to hear yours. So do let me know down in the comments below, who are your favorite villains? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And without further ado, let's get right off and started with the list. Okay, so coming in at number 10, we have Mr. E from 2018's Sons of Garmadon line. Now this is a minifigure that honestly I really wasn't sure whether or not to include on the list. Making this list just include 10 villains was one of the hardest lists I've ever had to make because Ninjago's villains are so rich and varied and diverse, but eventually I ended up putting Mr. E at number 10 because I feel like this is a perfect example of how you don't necessarily need to go all out with crazy new molds or arm printing or all sorts of unique weapons and armor to just have a cool looking character. At his core, Mr. E does not really introduce anything new to a LEGO minifigure. Sure, the armor piece was new at the time for 2018, but it's since appeared in a lot of different colors for lots of different characters, and looking back at it today, Mr. E is a very simple character. Just two standard red ninja katana swords, you have just a standard LEGO motorcycle helmet piece and visor, which has been in production since the 90s and 80s, and you really just have usage of standard LEGO printing techniques underneath. Even the face itself is incredibly simple. It is a pure black face with simply two eyes on the face itself, not even a mouth. But I feel like the simplicity of Mr. E's design really adds to the mystery and intrigue of the character itself. You really don't know where this character is coming from, where his origins are, what his purpose is, and obviously his entire enigma and persona is that he is a mystery, hence Mr. E. I really do like the Sons of Garmadon graphic design in general as well. Seeing the Garmadon logo but with handlebars for the helmets was a really cool touch, and I really feel that Mr. E was one of the strongest Ninjago character designs. Looked really cool in action despite being pretty much a standard minifigure. This just shows how far you can go with just good graphic design on a standard minifigure template. Of course, you could choose to include the Oni mask powered up version of him with the Mask of Vengeance with 4 arms, but honestly, this simple design just showcasing the 2 eyes and the visor is good enough for me. The only thing that would have made this a little bit better is if the eyes were actually printed directly on the visor. We know nowadays LEGO City has been doing a lot of printed visors with eyes on them, so I personally would have loved to see the eyes actually be printed on the visor and then literally just a plain black head underneath, but this is just as good, and it really goes to show that this was a really strong character design, that the character continues to be incredibly popular and even was resurrected for Ninjago Crystallized for the Crystal Council. And with that, we can now move on to number 9. Coming in at number 9, we have King Vangelis, aka the Skull Sorcerer. The Skull Sorcerer released for the Master of the Mountain Season 13 wave in 2020 and still remains to this day one of the most interesting Ninjago villain designs we've gotten yet, featuring a dark magician with a dual molded headpiece, black rice hat, white mask, as well as the Skull of Hazadur, a recolored Ninjago Legacy Skulk and Skull, and even dual molded blades to boot, utilizing the special weapon pieces created for Season 13. Now, Vangelis here is one of the most interesting and visually striking Ninjago villains. With a skirt piece and gigantic bat wings on his back, it is absolutely one of the most menacing looking villain designs, and really, honestly, the only major issue I have with this character is that the mask is nothing like what it looks like in the show. It's not really very expressive, it just showcases the eyes with a plain face, no mouth whatsoever, whereas they did try to give it a little bit more personality in the show itself, with glowing green eyes as well as a moving mouth, which unfortunately just aren't really captured on the minifigure itself. And yes, this probably can be chalked up to just changes they decided to make to the character in the show to make it a little bit more dynamic and interesting for the characterization of the Skull Sorcerer, but I definitely feel like it is a major missed opportunity to not even give us an updated facial print, especially when we got a re-release of King Vangelis in a crystallized form just last year. Overall though, while the minifigure is fairly simple and really only does introduce one brand new piece, which is the headpiece there, it is a very cool color scheme, dark green and black against the torso itself, making it one of my favorites on this list. And moving on to number 8, we can take a look at the Golden Master Overlord. Now this was our very first minifigure version of the Overlord introduced in 2014 for Ninjago Rebooted. And while the Overlord doesn't necessarily introduce any new pieces, the armor's from Lord of the Rings and the helmet is from Knight's Kingdom 2, a pretty old piece nowadays, this absolutely defined the look and feel of the Overlord going forwards into the future. This was before LEGO even had a brand new skirt element which they made in 2018 for Harry Potter, so he's still using the standard slope piece which makes him a bit taller than standard minifigures, but I feel like in this case it works in his favor because it just feels so much more dynamic for a character to be featured like this. I love the gold printing actually mimicking the Chima spider leg pieces which they used on his mech himself, really making him feel like he is an extension of the large spider crawler. The Overlord symbol looks fantastic on the character itself, and I just love the way they did the printing for the rib cage and the bone structure for the Overlord, making it feel like the armor he's using is really the only thing holding together a gaseous spirit, which is really cool, and I really do like how this came with the actual build for the walker itself, making it feel like it is integrated into the build. This really set the look and feel for the Overlord figures going forwards, especially with how he was depicted for Ninjago Legacy, having a very similar look and feel for the Overlord, from the golden armor to the ribcage to the purple energy swirling within. I love the look and feel of this figure, and I think the color scheme is fantastic, but there are still some more, even better minifigures beyond this one, so we can move on to number 7. And coming in at number 7, we have the Sky Pirate, the Jin Nauticon, aka from 2016, the Sky Pirates wave. Now, Nauticon is one of the most interesting Ninjago characters because I feel like he was honestly a culmination of a lot of what came with Ninjago characters going in the past. You have a recolor of the Ghost Tail from 2015's Possession. You have a recolor of the Stone Armor 4-armed piece from 2013. You even have some Nexo Knights pieces being thrown in with Macy's hairpiece recolored into black for the hairpiece there, and adding on the addition of a nice new mold for the Sword of Souls. This is such a menacing and interesting looking character. I actually really like the way the color scheme comes across, the dark green being pretty much just predominantly used for the armor and belt, whereas the orange is used for the skin tones underneath. I love the facial expression for Nauticon, giving him a ton of character, and I also really can appreciate how they were really able to give us a good looking character without even having to create any new molds. What you see is basically pieces that we've gotten in Ninjago in the past, just recolored into different colors to make a brand new character, which I think is absolutely all they needed to do for a character like this. Overall, while he doesn't introduce anything necessarily that new to the Ninjago Villain minifigure system, I love the look and feel of the character. 4 arms plus a ghost tail gives him this incredibly menacing tall look, which absolutely makes him stand out compared to other Ninjago villains. Coming in for our number 6 spot, we have the Jade Princess Harumi. Now, technically this minifigure was not advertised as a villain. Obviously, the big twist of Season 8 Sons of Garmadon was that Harumi was the Quiet One, aka the leader of the Sons of Garmadon in disguise, but essentially the character is a villain, so I figured it made sense to include on the list, and I have given her an extra knife from Season 9 as well, because I felt like that fit her character quite well, although of course the original character just was a plain minifigure. Now, Princess Harumi is a really beautifully detailed design, and I absolutely love the regal look and feel to the character itself. The cape being printed with the symbols of the Ninjago royal family is so cool and beautiful. I do love the fact that it actually goes upwards as well, giving it a very unique and noble feel to it. I also love the recolor of the hairpiece from the Lego Ninjago movie. This was Lady Iron Dragon's hairpiece, aka Coco, Lloyd's mom's hairpiece, but recolored in a new blend of gold and white, which I think is a really cool looking headpiece for the character itself, and I do wish that this was used for more characters. Unfortunately, no alternate face, which I do feel like would have helped the character of Harumi a ton, especially because for a while this was the only way to get her until the summer wave for Hunted. But overall, the dark green robes look fantastic. I love the metallic gold aspects of them. They even have sandals printed on the feet themselves, and rotating the cape around, you do also have a pretty simple design, just a hood on the back, but this was basically used to influence the design of the figure for the actual casual outfit, which I think makes sense because obviously that it's just a standard look and feel for the robes. But overall, this is a really cool character design that I honestly wish appeared more often and more frequently in the show itself versus the casual outfit, which is great, but we still don't have a minifigure for. Coming in at number 5, we are going all the way back to the beginning. This is Samukai from the Pilots 2011. Now, Samukai was a revolutionary minifigure design when it debuted in 2011. Since then, we've gotten a lot of characters with similar features, with 4 arms and all sorts of unique details, but for its time, Samukai was revolutionary, introducing a minifigure with 4 arms which hadn't been seen since 2009's Space Police with Frenzy, but giving him a unique skeleton look and feel. A 4-armed skeleton was such a good idea, and even an opening jaw, which really adds a lot to his character. Now, unfortunately, the reason why this is a little bit lower on the list is that Samukai's sculpt was pretty much done with LEGO building and minifigure standards of the time, meaning that with a lot of playware, you can easily scuff off the black paint, which you can see has already been done on my copy of the character. I got this when I was a kid, so I played with him a lot. I have a lot of fond memories of playing with Samukai, but because of that, you can scuff off the paint super easily. Nowadays, LEGO likely would dual mold this piece if they were to recreate it, have this entire thing be a black plastic and then have the entire upper part be white, but this was back before dual molding was really a very common thing. They did it for the boots, but that was also very special for 2011. Now, Samukai has a very unique and cool design for a minifigure. I love the fact that you can open and close the mouth. That is so cool, and they actually made a unique element for Samukai's jaw, which is a really smart thing to do, just having it open and close on a clip. I've given him his Day of the Departed weapon because that is his signature weapon that he did use in that special, but here's what the minifigure looks like without the weapon itself. Love the 4 arms. You can move each arm individually on these skeleton clips, and this is just such a cool looking design, and you can even have him kind of look back and forth by twisting the head back and forth like so. If you're curious to see what exactly the actual head sculpt looks like, let me go ahead and twist that off here so you can see what we're dealing with under the hood. This is a very unique mold, obviously a very specialized one for Samukai, one that really hasn't appeared since for Ninjago, despite a lot of people wanting LEGO to release a new Samukai minifigure. They probably would just have to require a brand new mold to do it, so they haven't done it, and Legacy is dead now, so we probably will never see this character again, but I think that's a shame because this is such a cool character design, and what a great main villain to start off with to lead a faction for Ninjago in 2011. Even though he was a little overshadowed by Lord Garmadon, he easily was the cooler looking minifigure of the two, to be completely honest, and I am a big fan of how the character turned out in general. For our next pick, we have General Kozu from 2013. Now, this was a really fantastic looking 4-armed LEGO Ninjago villain. While he wasn't necessarily the main villain of the final battle wave, he was the leader of the Stone Army Warriors and absolutely had a very unique design. One of my favorite things about this design is that they took the template used for Garmadon with 4 arms, but really made it feel like armor on top of a minifigure, versus Garmadon's, which is very simplistic in comparison. Kozu also introduced a new samurai stone armor piece for the helmet there with printed teeth, which is a feature that pretty much was only exclusive to the 2013 Stone Warriors, as well as a specialized new helmet piece. Overall, an absolutely decked out minifigure, and one of my favorite things is actually the color scheme. Despite most of the other Stone Warriors having a predominantly black color scheme, Kozu switched it up, having a mostly red color scheme, which I feel makes him feel delineated compared to some of the other characters in the Stone Army faction. Here's what the torso looks like underneath all of that, with fantastic detailed metallic silver on the back and front, and of course, seeing that metallic silver printing on the front of the torso was absolutely phenomenal. And I am a big fan of the entire Stone Armor faction, love the way the armor looks in general, and overall Kozu is the best looking one of them all, which is why he deserved a high place on this list. Moving onwards to number 3, we can take a look at one of the most recent Ninjago villains we have gotten. This is Lord Roz from the Ninjago Dragons Rising 2023 wave. Now, Lord Roz is particularly one of the most detailed Ninjago minifigures ever, sporting printing on the side of the arms as well as a brand new animalistic head mold, which really makes him stand out compared to other Ninjago villains. But what I really like about Lord Roz is he truly feels otherworldly, like he's from a different realm, from his attire being the Imperium attire, which does keep in line with the other Imperium soldiers, but with his own flair to it, as well as the head itself being a completely brand new mold. This is an absolutely stunning looking minifigure, packed with detail, with dark reds and metallic golds being utilized across the minifig itself. Really, the only flaw for Roz here is that he has the same problem that the crystallized Overlord had, which the teeth on his animal face aren't really printed, so they kind of do tend to blend into the fur. I do understand the limitations of printing complex 3D pieces like this, and LEGO probably just didn't have the technology to print it, but it does feel like a missed opportunity because right now he does absolutely feel very menacing in the show with his teeth being very prominent, and here on the figure they kind of just blend into the rest of the face. But this still is deserving of the third best Ninjago villain figure just because of how cool and unique it is, from the armor to the arm printing to all the aesthetic details that tie this character together. And with that, we can move on to number 2. And coming in at number 2, we have Prince Kalmar, or King Kalmar as he'd like to be called, from Ninjago Seabound in 2021. Now, Prince Kalmar is not only one of the most detailed Ninjago minifigures ever, he's also one of the most intricate and specially molded LEGO minifigures the company has ever produced, sporting not only a brand new squid tentacle piece, but also a brand new dual molded squid headpiece with teal and purple. Kalmar is decked out in teal and metallic gold printing from top to bottom, and I really love the amount of effort and detail work that went into creating such an intricate figure. From the look and feel of the specialized new tentacle pieces to the golden armor and metallic gold printing he has all over his body, Kalmar is absolutely unique, and I love how they didn't just reuse the existing LEGO tentacle piece that they used for minifigures like Hades from the Disney Series 2 CMFs, but opted to create a brand new tentacle piece to really have an animated look and feel compared to what it would look like in the show. My only gripe with this character would honestly be that, much like the Skull Sorcerer, while Kalmar's head for the minifigure form is perfectly fine and looks really cool, in the animated show they just made him a lot more, well, animated. He's more expressive, his eyes are glowing a different color, and he feels like he has a lot more character to him in the TV series versus the head mold here, which doesn't really have a ton of printing for the eyes itself. It definitely feels that the eyes are kind of faded back into the head, and I really do feel like that was a major missed opportunity for them to just add an additional level of printing for the eyes themselves, just to make him feel a lot more alive in terms of being ambitious and as a villain and malicious in his intent. Here he just kind of looks like his eyes are just barely faded into the printing itself. Otherwise, I do absolutely love the way the figure is produced, and if it weren't for the head not quite matching the animated series counterpart, this would have been number 1 on the list. But before we actually move on to number 1, I wanted to take some time to talk about an honorable mention, one of my favorite, technically not a villain Ninjago minifigures that I just wasn't quite sure where to place, and this is the security drone version of General Cryptor, which was in and of itself a recolor of the original 2014 General Cryptor minifigure, which released around 2017 as a Bricktober Toys R Us exclusive. Now, the reason why this doesn't really deserve a spot on the villains list is that this technically depicts a form that is fighting for good. This is a Borg security drone, which is not General Cryptor. It is basically just using the exact same character model, but recoloring the black to white. Now, this minifigure is super cool and special to me because it takes an already fantastic minifigure in the form of the 2014 Cryptor Ninjroid and colors it to a very unique color scheme, making it very massable, but also one of the most unique looking LEGO Ninjago minifigures they've ever made. One of my favorite details about this figure is the armor piece. Of course, this was a piece that was initially made for Cryptor, but it looks absolutely fantastic. I love how the armor piece is actually asymmetrical, so you have different styles of armor on each side, and with the armor removed, you can see what the minifigure looks like. It again is literally taking General Cryptor and just changing the color scheme, which also is just another reason why this one is so hard to judge, because it is taking an existing minifigure and just flipping around the colors to something I personally find a lot more appealing. Really, the only major innovation of this figure was being able to print the head all the way around, which is very cool that they were able to do that for this minifigure as well as some others in the Bricktober range, but overall, very cool that we got this, and it's a shame that this minifigure is so expensive nowadays because it is a fantastic figure, and I really wish it was just a little bit more massable so more people who wanted him would be able to get him. But with that, we can finally move on to our number 1 pick for, in my opinion, the best Ninjago villain minifigure ever made. And coming in at number 1, we have 2019's Ice Emperor, aka Zane, who was in his Ice Emperor persona for the Never Realm. Now this is one of the most exquisitely produced LEGO minifigures that they have ever done. Sporting dual molded white and transparent light blue armor and helmet, this is a one-of-a-kind samurai looking minifigure with an icy twist. And I just love the aesthetic of this character and all of the different Blizzard samurai underneath the Zane Ice Emperor faction. I don't know what it is about this minifigure that really just appeals to me so much, but to me, this is one of the coolest LEGO minifigures that the company has ever produced. Straight from taking the traditional Japanese style of armor with the straps and little bits embroidered into the armor itself, but adding an icy look and feel to it, from a transparent blue crown to ice spikes literally growing out of one side of the shoulder, this is a truly phenomenally produced minifigure. And I remember spending so much time just staring at the minifigure design and trying to figure out how they dual molded the two components together. This honestly kind of speaks for itself. No other Ninjago minifigure has multiple dual molded components just like this one. And while the graphic design underneath the torso is fairly standard, what's really special about the figure are the two new armor pieces created for it. From the samurai armor to the samurai helmet, this absolutely feels very fresh and very new for Ninjago, and I think it's honestly a shame that we only saw these colored in the dark red, gunmetal gray, and white for the different armor pieces, because I feel like these would have been fantastic to be used for something even like Ninjago Crystallized, where we know they were at least considered for the Overlord before they changed it around to the Crystal King. Overall though, this is easily my favorite Ninjago villain minifigure ever made, and yes, while this technically is Zane, I still feel like it belongs on the villains list because, again, it is Zane in his pure villain persona, and he didn't really have any idea of who he was at this time, so I feel like having him as the villain makes a lot of sense. But with that, we've summed up my personal thoughts on my favorite Ninjago villain minifigures, and again, this has just been my opinion, and I would love to hear yours. Alright, and with that, we have summed up my top 10 favorite LEGO Ninjago villain figures. Let me know down in the comments below, which are your favorite factions? Do you have a favorite particular named villain? Of course, throughout the theme's 11-year run, there have been some fantastic figures, and I'd love to hear from all of you which are your favorites. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming away very soon. Thanks, and bye-bye for now.